To fight crime and delinquency, we build more prisons, hire more policemen, install more alarm systems. Is there another solution? Join us on Open Up. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. We've got some marvelous guests who have some first-hand experience in dealing with crime and delinquency and finding new approaches to an old problem. And our first guests are, we have with us the Honorable Asa Kelley, Jr., who is the Chief Judge of the Judicial Court, Superior Court, that is, in Albany, Georgia, and also serves as the chairperson for the Advisory Council for Probation. Thank you for joining us, Judge Kelley. And we have Dr. Richard Pallura, who is a correctional psychiatrist. He's with the University of Alabama, and we're delighted to have you both with us. Now, crime and delinquency, I guess, is a subject that's on the minds of so many people because we really feel like we've got a great increase in crime. Now, we listen sometimes to statistics on the local level, and we say, you know, this city is reducing crime, and that city is reducing crime. Are we really increasing crime?
There's no doubt about that. Dr. Pallura is in a better position to discuss that than I, however.
What about that, Dr. Pallura?
Well, the crime rates in the United States have been increasing at alarming rates for the last 20 years, most especially the last 12 or 15. We have a chart that shows here the crime rates in the Georgia area. And it's an appalling and terrible thing. People are so used to hearing about it that they're almost getting used to it. Atlanta is famous for its crime problem. Unfortunately, that's a sad thing. The good news is that in Atlanta there are things going on that could help solve the crime problem throughout the United States. I'm referring to the character education work of Mr. Dan MacDougald and his associates.
And that's, that was the chart. So we really are increasing. Is it because maybe we have dramatic crimes, like, for instance, what we've been facing here in Atlanta with the children's murders? Are those the kinds of crimes we're talking about, or just crimes in general?
Well, those are just the tip of the iceberg, and those are what attract public attention and give Atlanta the reputation it has, but Atlanta is no worse than any other major city in the United States. And the good thing is that hopefully there are solutions being found here.
Yes. Now, Judge Kelley, before you became a Superior Court judge, you were the director, weren't you, of the Georgia prison systems?
Yes.
Tell us, describe for us what the conditions of the prisons were when you were there and where we are now.
Well, of course, the prison system back in 1967 was underfunded, overpopulated, as it is today. There was a great need for additional prisons. Everyone wanted to put more people in prison, and no one was doing anything about the repeaters. Soon after I became the Director of Corrections, I learned that the number of people going back to prison after release was about 70 or 75%. And as I visited around the state in all of the prisons, and in particular Georgia State Prison, I was talked to the various prisoners. And I found that within the hearts and minds of the vast majority of these people, they were filled with fear and hostility. And it came to my mind that it was absolutely necessary for us to find a way to reduce the number of people going back to prison, and also to change the attitudes and dispel that fear and hostility with love and respect. And I ran into Mr. Dan MacDougald one day, and he was telling me that he had been doing some research. I said, well, Mr. MacDougald, we don't have any money, but we need to find a way to reduce recidivism. We need to find a way to change the attitudes of the people who are committing crimes. I said, can you do it? He said, I don't know, but I'd like to try. And he did. Along with a psychologist, they went to Georgia State Prison. They had a pilot project, which I think was most successful. And then when I became a Superior Court judge, I recognized the fact that in order for me to sentence properly, I needed to have a complete diagnostic examination of this individual, along with the pre-sentence reports prepared by the probation department. And we also needed a character education to teach these people the values that they needed to know in order to get along in society. So the EMI program, or the Emotional Maturity Program, was developed first of all in Georgia State Prison, and then it was moved to Dougherty County. Governor Maddox made it possible for us to do this. And I could talk to you for hours about this program, but I think really Judge Wilbur D. Owens, in a recent opinion, best described the program. And I would like to read to you just one or two sentences. Judge Owens says that the obvious purpose of the EMI program is to teach prisoners and probationers that men must live according to accepted rules of law. The program seeks to instill in these individuals an appreciation of legal, moral, and ethical principles and proper rules of behavior so that they may voluntarily correct their criminal nature. These are clearly proper goals of the probation system. It should be noted that a study has shown that felons who have taken EMI in Dougherty County have had much lower failure rates than those who have not taken EMI. EMI clearly has a secular purpose and a primary secular effect. I think he described it far better than I can.
Okay, Dr. Pulura, as a psychiatrist, what is your position on character education?
Well, character education, you mean to prevent crime?
Yeah.
It's the only hope for a major breakthrough in crime prevention. There are a lot of good things to do about crime prevention, such as neighborhood organizations and stronger law enforcement and so forth, but that's all just cutting off the tops of the weeds. The real solution to the crime problem is changing the attitudes of people, and that's the only hope of doing it. There are all kinds of reasons that are given for the high crime rates. The most popular reason is poverty. I can show you places in the world where people are dying in the street from hunger, where poverty is much worse than anything we've got in this country, where the crime rate is 1/10 of what it is here.
Okay, I'm going to have to interrupt because we have to take a break, but we're going to come back and meet a former inmate in a prison at Welcome back. We were talking earlier with Dr. Pulura, but we have with us still Judge Kelley, Asa Kelley, who's with the Superior Court. You're down in Albany, Georgia, and the former director of the Georgia Corrections Center, well, for the facility here in Georgia. And you gave us some very good background on the system when you headed it before you became a judge. And also who's joined us, Mr. Dan MacDougald, who is the staff director now of the Advisory Council for probation. And Mr. MacDougald, you've charted up a great reputation for yourself and coming up with some new approaches to this crime and delinquency and figure out ways to curbing it. So we're delighted to have you. Before we took a break, we were talking about the fact that Judge Kelley had talked about the prison systems and the character program that has been going on. And we have a former inmate who's been participating in the program. And for let's see, for his safety and for his security, we're not going to identify him, nor will you see him on camera. We're going to refer to him as John Doe. He was formerly a prisoner. He's now come out in society. He's doing very, very well, and we'll keep his identity unknown for the moment. But John Doe, would you just tell us what it was like for you in prison? First, I'll ask you, how long were you in prison?
I spent a total of 14 years in prison on that revolving door system that Judge Kelley was talking about. I'd been in and out all my life up to that point. When I met Dan MacDougald, he came to the prison with a program that we had heard so many things about and heard so many programs previous to that that were sounding similar, and we were very skeptical about his program. We gave him an open door. He proved himself out, and the program has worked for me, and I was able to pass it on to other prisoners.
Yeah. Tell us how old you are now, sir.
I am 46 years old.
Okay, and you've been in prison most of your life.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you mind telling us what you went in for the first time?
Car theft was the first one.
What was that?
Car theft was the first one.
All right.